So coming out here soon is the live action Snow White movie. And I kind of want to like make my own Snow White costume or outfit or dress, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, I want to make my own, but I want to make it dapper or 1950s because mostly what I wear is costumes and kind of 1950s, 1940s style. I have been kind of going into the 70s lately, but whatever. For the most part, I wear 1940s, 1950s dresses, or sometimes costume dresses. So I figured we can mesh the two worlds together and I can get my Snow White costume and my 1950s or 1940s and mesh them together and make a 1950s Snow White costume or outfit. So first thing I did was look up the Snow White costume, refreshed my memory on that. She wears a yellow skirt and a dark blue bodice with like a line down the middle and it kind of pointy. And then she has her big puffy blue sleeves with the red in them, and then the big white collar, and sometimes she wears the red cape. So I scrolled through the world of vintage patterns and came across this pattern here that is a Simplicity 1949. I think it's 1949. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a 1949 pattern. And for some reason, I saw this pattern and was like, this reminds me of Snow White. Obviously, I want to do more puffy sleeves and a shorter skirt, but I want to do something like this. But I don't own this pattern. I own this pattern, which I'll pull up right here. It is Simplicity 688 from 1975. And yes, I know this doesn't look like anything like that one, but this is what I have, and I'm going to alter it to look like this one, or similar to this one. So I have used this pattern once before, and I have made a video on making that dress, but I have not uploaded it yet. It should be uploaded hopefully in May or sometime this summer. But I made the video last year, just got around to editing it. Should hopefully be up sometime this summer. Anyway, yes, I know I'm behind and my videos are coming out all out of order. So I know this pattern works. I know what alterations I need to do on it, what I'd like to do on it. And I do like this pattern. So what I'm going to do is just pretty much use the big puffy sleeves that come on it. Which I actually think I used, no, I didn't use for these. Maybe I did use for this dress. I don't know if I used them for this dress. I don't remember what sleeves I used for this dress. But anyway, I'm going to use their big puffy sleeves. And then I'm going to make the neckline square. And I'm going to, and then I'm just going to actually shorten the pattern. So I'll have to show you what I normally do, but I have done this before. I take a dress pattern that goes all the way down and I just slice it off at the waist. This one I'm going to have to slice off at the waist and then make a triangular point at the front for Snow White. And then I'm just going to use a circle skirt pattern, or just a circle skirt, a big circle skirt to make the bottom part. So hopefully this all works out because we're making this up as we go along. So yeah, I'm going to make a square neckline and I will show you how I take a long pattern like this, a long one-piece pattern, and slice it to make a separate, different top. And I already have like pretty much everything for this. I have garbage truck. Okay, ooh, and I lost that. So I have this yellow, it's kind of a dingy yellow, but it's a yellow bed sheet that I thrifted at the thrift store for like $2. It's like a king size, queen size bed sheet. There's a lot. And it was like for $2. It was super exciting. So we have the yellow bed sheet, which I'm going to use for the skirt. I have red bias tape, which I thought I would use for gathering around the sleeve, but I actually think a red ribbon might work better now that I think about it. So I'm gonna have to go to Joann's and get a red ribbon to put around and then put a cute little bow. But that's what I'm thinking. And then maybe I will do a red ribbon on the waist, because that yellow to blue is kind of a weird color transition to me. I don't know how she pulled it off, because like when I put my blue up to my yellow, I feel like it's such a weird yellow transition. I feel like it's a weird transition. So, but I feel like if I put the red line in the middle, it looks better. I don't know. So I might do a red ribbon around the waist. I mean, may or may not. Who knows? But either way, I have red bias tape, which I'm going to probably replace with red ribbon. I have the yellow for the skirt. And then for the collar, because Snow White has a white collar, so I was thinking with this pattern, I was either going to do a white trim around the neckline or white lace. I'm thinking the white lace might be a little weird, but you know, I have white lace, I have white fabric to do the white trim around the neckline. See if those work. We're making this stuff up as we go along. Okay, I've got blue zipper. See, I've got everything except for the red ribbon. So I went through my stash pile of blues up here above my head, and I have this red and blue plaid, and I was thinking about using this because, like I said, Snow White has the blue bodice with the lighter blue puff sleeves with the red on them. And so I was like, oh, red and blue, you know? I could use this and it'll be okay for the bodice and the sleeves, but I actually think this plaid pattern is just A, too red and purpley, and B, is too busy. Like already having puff sleeves, a white collar, a, you know, yellow circle skirt, and then having a plaid top, I feel like it's going to be too busy. So that's why I'm not going with this one. I think it's going to be just too busy, too much, and it's not as blue as I'd like. So once again, going through my blue stash pile, I have this blue cotton that I actually got for a project when I first got married 1.5 million years ago. And I never used this for the project I bought it for 1.5 million years ago. It has been sitting in my stash pile for 1.5 million years. So, yeah, I think I will finally use this for something instead of, you know, on a project I've never gotten around to. So, we're going to use this blue because I figured this is like almost the same perfect color blue for Snow White. And as I showed you, it kind of goes with the yellow. I mean, I still feel like the yellow-blue transition is really weird, but we'll see how this goes. So, we got the fabrics. I told you my idea, my plans. So let's go and alter a pattern. And I'll show you how to alter a pattern. Well, you guys go back here. All of you, go back in here. Okay, hopefully you guys can see this and understand what's going on. Okay, so what I do is I get the original pattern. So here's the original pattern, and I tape it to the ground. You can't see that I taped it, but I promise you it's taped. Like up there, you can't wiggle and move. It's taped. Then I get some tissue paper, the tissue paper that, you know, comes in a huge bulk and you use to put in gift baskets, and I tape that over the top. Then I trace the pattern. Doesn't look like I traced it, but I promise you I traced it. I traced it, and then I knew with this pattern I needed to add 1 inch in the waist because I have a really long waist. So I put all the markings, drew the waistline, added 1 inch, put it back where that marking is at, and then continued on. This pattern is super duper nice, and not all patterns have this. This pattern has, if you can read, it says right there, waistline, and it has a line where the waistline is at. This should be where your waist is at. So, and because I've once again done this pattern in the past, I know adding that inch up there does make that at my waistline. So, we have now at the top, we've added my inch to make it to my waistline, or shortening it. If you guys have a shorter waist, you can just fold that up, you know, fold your pattern up and then pin it to get the waist you want. But if you want to have a straight waistline, you would just add that 5/8 or whatever seam allowance you normally sew at, add it, and then, well, bam, you're done. You have your straight across waist for a pattern. Because this is the front panel piece that has on the fold, I do need to draw that on real quickly. And I want it to be pointed. I measured with my ruler here, a beautiful whopping, I think 3 inches. We're just gonna go with 3 inches. I think that might be too much. But it's always better to have more than less, because you can take away, you cannot add. Anyway, so I think 3 inches should be fine. It might be a little much, it may not be enough, I don't know. But I went with 3 inches. I kind of measured and was like, 3 inches seems about right. So I have my ruler lined up, marked towards the edge, drew from there, measure, you know, marked. It made the beautiful line. And then once again, just added my seam allowance. Don't trust this one. This is my bad seam allowance. And then anyway, then I added a seam allowance. So that is what I did for the front. Now I gotta go do the same for the side. I'm gonna get a new piece. I'm gonna lay out the side pattern piece. I'm going to add the extra inch to the waist. I'm actually going to also add an inch to the shoulder strap, because I want my shoulder strap to be wider. Let's see if I can find the side piece and show you. So I do the same thing with the side piece. I'm going to tape it down to the ground, make sure it's all nice and flat. I'm going to mark where everything is at, add my 1 inch to my waist. I'm actually also going to add an inch to the strap, because I want it to be wider. I'm not going to add it from this side, because that's going to mess up your sleeves. I'm going to add an inch up here where your sew line is, and then kind of taper it down to this triangle, or this diamond, because that's going to match up with that one. And this is going to match up with there. So I'll probably actually try to get it to this dot, because we really don't want to mess up with anything right here. That's going to be right there, and this one's going to match right here. And we don't really want to mess anything up, so I'm going to match from this dot to the added on inch that I'm going to do. And then, like I said, add an inch to the waist, to the shortening or lengthening line. I'm going to add an inch. And then this pattern is awesome and doesn't actually have a waistline. So I guess I'm going to walk my pattern and figure out where the waistline is. So I'm going to match it up here and kind of walk my pattern and see, oops, sorry, that went all fuzzy for you guys, that this is the natural waistline, and mark that. I should do that really quickly, but I'm not, because that will be with my left hand, and I know that will not be a straight line. And then I'm going to add a seam allowance to that. You don't actually have to trace out a pattern. You could just lay it out and do that if you want to take the risk and gamble and fold up the pattern. Because I'm making bigger alterations, such as adding this point and changing the sleeve, that is why I'm personally making another set of patterns. Oh, and I'm adding the 1 inch to the pattern length. But if you want to, you could actually just pin this straight to your fabric, know where that waistline is at, and add whatever you want to add if you want to take that gamble. Personally, I like to make my own pattern so I can draw on it and make notes on it and do whatever I want with it, and have a nice pristine pattern that does not have any alterations on it. But that's personally me. everybody to each their own. Hopefully that made sense. If not, I'm sorry. Do you ever just do a difficult task or a annoying task, a tedious task, and realize afterwards that there was an easier route? So, I'm laying on the floor here. So you know I use this pattern. And I alternate. Had to have the square top and have the pointed waist and actually have a waist. And I got done cutting it all out, including the skirt and everything. And just realized I own a pattern that has all of that. It has the square neck. Well, here, we'll do the drawing, that's better. We have the square neck and the pointed waist and everything. It doesn't have puffy sleeves, but still, it has everything that I wanted. So I just made a pattern, cut it all out, when I could have used one I already owned. Ah! Why do I fail like this? Why? Anyway. I will now attempt to sew this together and hopefully it looks great. If not, I guess we're recutting out that pattern. Voiceover time. So you are seeing me right now. So the darts into the back panel. I love this pulling the pin out as I'm sewing trick, so I don't sew over the pin, but yet I can have the pins keep the line for the dart for me. And now I am sewing the front side pieces to the front panel, that little front panel that has the point on the end. You can kind of see it here pointing at my chest. And then now I am sewing the side back panels to the side front panels. And that way now the whole top will be one complete unit. So next I'm sewing up the shoulder seams. Shoulders is a really hard word for me to say, but anyway, here I'm sewing up the two shoulder seams and making it so I can actually wear it. Now I am adding a gather stitch to the top of the yellow circle skirt because I do plan on gathering it, and I do make a lot of my skirts a little bit bigger at the waist, so I can do a small gather or a light gathered. So here I'm adding the second gathering stitch. Ooh, I got some lint in my sewing machine. And now I am sewing the back seam of the circle skirt, and if you caught that there at the very beginning of right before I sewed, I have two pins right next to each other. That is my marker for me of where to start and where to stop. I just put two pins right next to each other. It's just a little trick I do for myself. But now the circle skirt is together. So it's looking like a dress. It's looking like a Snow White dress, blue top, yellow bottom. I don't have sleeves yet. I'm working on it. I didn't put the sleeves on because I wanted to try the whole ensemble on together, even though they're not attached. I just wanted to try it because I had a lot of questions and I didn't want to progress any further until I tried the dress on and see how I felt about a lot of these questions. So first things first is I have the skirt really long for several reasons. One, because I knew it needed to hang and stretch out and then make it be a straight hem. And then I'll get back to the other reason why I made it long. I did make a white slip or a white layer underneath because the yellow was A, too thin. As you can see, it's like super thin, see-through-y. And B, the white underneath helps make the yellow look more yellow and less dingy of a yellow. Makes it look more vibrant. So I did the white slip underneath for that reason. Is help bring the yellow out, make it pop more, and B, to make it less see-through. But anyway, back to making it long. I made it long because I knew the dress needed to hang and stretch out, and then I would have to cut the hem. B, I didn't know, and that's why I wanted to try this on, is I didn't know if I wanted to connect the skirt to the dress and like make another panel and the front piece so it could be straight across and then like tack down the point, or if I wanted to like have the skirt follow the point. And I know that's not really like showing very well, but pull down the skirt to show, pull down the skirt to follow the point. And because I made the point shorter, I think that might work of doing that, but I don't know. I don't know what route I want to go yet. With the point, before I had it like this. That's how originally it is. I made the pattern. This is a very extreme point. If I went with this extreme point, I definitely would make another front panel and attach it to that front panel and then tack down this point. But I'm not going to do, I don't want this dramatic of a point. So I have now played around with it and folded it up, and I think I want to go about like this shallow of a point. I know it's not straight and centered. Yes, my husband keeps pointing that out. But I think I want to go with a lot more shallow of a point, which is great, but I made the bigger, more extreme point because, you know, now I can fold it and I have that extra fabric. If you went reverse, can't add fabric. You'd have to cut out a whole new piece. And yes, I kind of want to bring it up on the sides, which is okay because I do feel like the back pieces that are not pinned together anymore, and have a lot of I have a lot of extra fabric on the back. I do that when I make my own patterns. I give myself an extra inch on the back just for safekeeping. But the back I feel like is a little, actually I guess it's not too high. It's actually sitting pretty where I need it. But I thought about possibly bringing it up a little bit higher on the back. That way the point flows a little better and not just on the front piece. But I don't know if I'm going to do that. See, more questions. More I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just making this up as I go along. And then the neckline. Well, then I have the sleeves that when I get to the sleeves will be a whole nother set of questions, which is why I didn't do those yet. I wanted to tackle these questions first. But the neckline, I have it folded in. Okay, no, fine. See you, pin. I don't need you. But I have it folded and pinned on this side. This side, I just have it folded in. So it would look like this, where I would not have it fold on the seam line. Now I'm going to fold it back on the seam line, so, because that's going to be all taken away and turned in either. Actually, it won't be turned in because I was going to do a bias tape around the edge. So I guess I'll have to trim that. But normally you would fold that in with the neckline, with the facing for the neckline. But I'm not going to make a facing for the neckline. Necklace, go back here so people are going to see what I'm doing. So I have it folded in, and at first, oh, that's the other thing I need to do. For once in my life, for the first time in my life, it is tight on the bust area. It is tight across the chest, and I need to let that out a little bit. That's going to be the first and only time I probably ever say this in my life, is it's tight around the bust area. Not really tight, just slightly tight, so I do need to loosen that up a little bit. But anyway, I have the neckline folded and pinned in place, and I at first was not okay with this square neckline. I was not comfortable with it. I didn't like it. I really wanted to go with what the pattern originally is. Okay, maybe I do want that pin back. Ugh. So at first I wanted to go with what their pattern originally is, which is a sweetheart neckline. But now I'm kind of like, the square neck is growing on me. It's kind of growing on me. I mean, obviously I'd have to adjust this because it is sticking out a little bit. But it's kind of growing on me. So now I'm like, do I want to continue with the square neckline like I originally thought, or go with what the pattern is and do the sweetheart neckline? Which I don't know. And that's like the other thing, is I was going to, oh, hold on a second. is I have used an old one. These new ones I made little bits of. Because I originally was going to go and put some bias tape around the neckline. I made different sizes because I didn't know what size I wanted. But if I do the sweetheart, is that going to look weird having the sweetheart and not... And do I do the bias tape on all the sides and go across the top? And then, because I'm like, if I do it across the top, the square will be a lot easier. Or if I do just the sides and the back, then the sweetheart would be... Doesn't matter if I do the sweetheart or not. If I do the sweetheart, doing the bias tape across the sweetheart is going to be not fun. Done it, but it's not fun. And then what size of bias tape do I do around the neckline? Do I do the medium, the small, or... I actually don't really like the small, so I'll probably go the medium or do... Let's do it on the other side. I can do this. Or not. Or the large. So like, what size do I do? Too many questions and I have no answers. Okay, I have one answer. I want the point to be this size. Sweetheart, non-sweetheart. What size bias tape? Do I do the bias tape across the whole entire top? Do I do it just on the sides and the back? Do I do the gather around with the point or not? There's too many questions and I don't know where I want to go. So now the next question is, do I tackle the sleeves and put those on, and that I know will cause me to have more questions in my life, and ignore these problems, or do I continue to stare at this and figure out how to fix these problems? I don't know what I'm doing with this dress. I'm making it up as I go along, if you can't tell. I'll figure this out, I promise. I promise. Hello, Editing Raven here. I have been editing the Snow White video, and it is kind of long. So I am going to split it into 2 parts, and hopefully next week you can see the rest of the video of how I make the Snow White dress and the reveal and review and all that fun jazz. So yeah, so stay tuned for that. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the little bell notification icon and all that fun jazz, and I will see you guys next week with the rest of the Snow White video. So I wanted to use this pattern on, but dropped my phone on myself. Okay,